Welcome to episode 12 of the Legacy Warrior podcast, where we help you get in life's arena, become the best version of yourself, and elevate your legacy. I am here with my partner in crime, as always, Stephanie McKinley.
Hey, everybody.
Man, today, guys, we're going to talk to just a dear friend of both of ours, somebody that I've known for a couple years now, somebody who's really played a really important role in my personal journey over the last couple of years and really helped me get to where I'm at now. We're going to talk a little bit about that here in a few minutes. What I love is Janine Hernandez, who we're bringing on here. She is the epitome of somebody who just continues to embrace the fear, walk in surrender of what God has for her, and frankly, just really set a brilliant example of what it looks like to just continue to take steps to create the lifestyle and, more importantly, the impact that God has for her. And so she's continuing to create and elevate her own legacy every day. She takes action others aren't willing to take. And I just really can't wait to share this legacy warrior with you guys today. So Janine, what's up, girl?
Excited to have her.
Hey, guys. Thank you for having me.
Man, we're so pumped to have you on here. So as always, I like to read the bio of what people are doing, what they've been up to, and where they're going. So Janine is a #1 best-selling author. How many times over now?
3.
3 times over. And how many books have you written?
7.
Boom. She's a speaker, and she owns the Book Publishing Academy. So she teaches people how to write their books and write their stories, just like she's done 7 different times. And so Janine's been interviewed nationally on TV, on radio. She's been seen on all major media outlets, CBS, NBC, Fox. You pick it, she's been on it. She's got over 20 years experience as an author. Again, she's published 7 of her own books. And that's really what led her into her path and her life's purpose of what she's doing now, of creating the Book Publishing Academy and frankly helping other authors like myself a couple years ago take their idea from inception to execution, create #1 bestsellers, really impact other people's lives. And she's went from starting it off with the first person to now having a global business where she continues to make huge, huge impact. So we're pumped to have you on the pod today, girl.
Yes, Janine, every time your name is mentioned, I'm like, she is a gem. You just have to meet her. She's a gem. Like, she is that type of person that she is just, like he said, she's living her purpose every day. We see it. And it's inspiring. It's very inspiring to me, especially as woman to a woman, that to see her, because I know that girl, she is on her hustle.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
So look, you can't get to purpose without pain. We're firm believers here about that on the Legacy Warrior podcast. The pain is really where you figure out what you're meant to do in life. And you have a choice. Do you sit in it? Do you wallow in it? Which we've all done at certain points in time. Or do you allow it to be the rocket fuel for your life? And Janine, you have a really great story. And so I want you to just take like 5 minutes, 7 minutes, and just give everybody a quick synopsis of your story and how, some of the struggles that you've been through and what you've learned from those. And then we'll take it from there.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. So a little bit about me and my story. I am a native of New Jersey. I've been here in Arizona for over 22 years. I actually got started with my business about 7 years ago. And at the time I was living in Arizona, I was in a space where I was sick and tired of just waiting for other people to move. I'm a mover, but I was always waiting for other people. I was waiting for validation from other people. I was waiting for permission from other people, and I got tired of it. And I had started writing my book when I was 12 years old, but I waited 17 years to publish it because I was so afraid of what people were going to think and whether or not I was a good enough writer. So in 2015, I finally I had a complete breakdown. I'll be honest with you. I had a breakdown. My whole world just flipped upside down. I could no longer carry this anymore. And I remember having this feeling. I was just crying and asking God, I have all these dreams, I have all these goals, but why do I continue to be in these situations, whether it be with men or, just things that happen in life. And I felt God like wipe my tear, and he's like, write that book and publish it.
Mm.
And so I published my first book in 2015. I opened up my business, had no idea what I was doing, had no guidance, had no mentorship. But for some reason, people would always reach out to me and ask me, like, how do I do what you're doing? And so I started to coach authors one-to-one. And it just kind of blew up. Right before the pandemic, I started to get this very big intuitive feeling that I needed to take my business virtual online and do group coaching. So I literally spent like 2 months setting everything up. The pandemic hits and everyone is at home. You know, they have all this free time and they have time to write books. And we blew up. Like, it was crazy because a lot of businesses, they were going out of business or losing employees. There was a lot of layoffs, and my business took off. Opposite. And I'm so grateful because if I hadn't listened to my intuition, we wouldn't be where we are right now. And the Book Publishing Academy, I mean, to be honest with you, I didn't even have the modules ready. I had no videos recorded. I had no workbook, but I posted on Facebook and I'm like, hey, it was a women's group. And I'm like, hey, I'm about to launch a book publishing academy looking for some beta testers. And I had like over 40 women respond. And I think that month I sold over $21,000 before I even had a program. And I was like, okay, now I need to.
Now it's time to hustle.
I had like 2 weeks to create it. And that was history. Like, we went from like just 5 authors to now we have over 75 authors. And yeah, it's been a journey.
Yeah, so I wanted to go back for a second because you mentioned that you had a breakdown that led you to your purpose. And so I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about exactly what happened in that breakdown that made you realize like you need something different.
So at the time, this was like 7, 8 years ago, I was dating someone who was stagnant. They weren't moving. And I always felt like I was pushing him to do more, do better. And I felt like I was at a fork in the road of like, do I continue in this being stagnant or do I just move forward? And at the time, my aunt and my cousin in Colombia, they got into a bus accident. The bus completely went off the road. They flew out of the bus. They almost died.
Wow.
Thank God they're still here with us. But that kind of opened my eyes of like, life is so short. Life is short and you're sitting here wasting your time. And I think I just had that moment with God where I was like, I'm just so tired. I'm tired of like, I want these things, but how do I get there? And God was like, publish that book.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? You've got, I think all of our challenges in life, if we allow it to, it just gives us perspective. The perspective allows us to embrace the fear, take the messy action, continue to refine what we're doing to figure out what it is that we're going to do. And I love that you talked about the relationship that you're in. And I want to touch on that a little bit because I think that that's important to our listeners. Talk a little bit more about that. And then when you finally made the decision, because we all say, hey, I got sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I feel like sometimes we'll just hit our head against the same wall over and over and over and over and over again until we finally learn the lesson, get sick and tired and realize that we need to go over the wall, around the wall, that we're not necessarily probably going to go through the wall. There's a different path. So talk a little bit about when you chose to just really love yourself enough, and how did you resolve that decision mentally to say, this stagnant relationship isn't for me anymore. I deserve more. I want more. And now I'm going to figure out how to go get more.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I'm a firm believer that if you don't take action and remove yourself from a situation, God will do it for you. And it's going to be very painful.
Amen to that. I've been there.
I love that you said that.
I wasn't ready. But I found out he was cheating and all that. So I had to walk away. And unfortunately, I didn't learn my lesson. I continued to be in relationships like that. And it wasn't until about 3 years ago that I was in a narcissistic relationship. It was probably the worst experience I've ever had, but that was my breakthrough moment. And that was what I needed to learn. So although it was very painful and I went through that, that was my aha moment. That was the moment where I realized, like, okay, now I understand why I went through all of these things. I've learned so much about myself just going through that. And then even then, going through all that pain, God blessed me again. Like, you know, there was another book that came from it, and I was able to inspire so many people. So sometimes I didn't learn the first time. I didn't learn the second time, not even the third time. But
hey, I've been there too. It's cool.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you said that, because sometimes I like that you talked about the narcissistic relationship and that you realize some things about yourself, because that's what we talk about a lot on Legacy Warrior podcast, is we deal a lot with the relationships and what we learn from them. And so I was just curious, like, if you would mind sharing with the listeners that, because there's a lot of people out there in those type of relationships still, or
people that are really close to us that have been in them.
Yes. And what would you say that you did learn from that relationship that you would not carry forward? Like, what did you change in your relationships going forward about yourself?
Well, the number one thing I learned was self-love, how to truly love myself. Because if I love myself, I'm not going to allow that type of behavior. But what I also learned, how to have boundaries, how to enforce boundaries, and understand how a person reacts to them, whether they're healthy or not, how to pick up on red flags. I also learned a lot about people pleasing. I tend to be a people pleaser, or I used to be a people pleaser.
Same here.
So I learned how to say no and be okay with it. And I tend to worry a lot about, you know, am I going to hurt someone's feelings by saying no or not being able to do something? And now it's like, somebody's going to get hurt. It's either me or you, right? So I've learned to like sit in that uncomfort of people pleasing, and then acknowledging, like, you don't have to do anything to please anybody else but yourself. And there's healthy ways to do it. There was just so much that I learned. I will have to say that one of the biggest lessons too was I feel like a lot of people, when they leave relationships like that, they have guilt and resentment, and they are very hard on themselves, and they hate the person and all of that. And I don't hate my narcissist. He actually was the best teacher for me and taught me the greatest lessons. So I'm like grateful that he brought me through that, because it got me where I am now. And when you can surrender and kind of let go, you get blessed in so many ways.
You stop suffocating. When you can surrender, when you stop acting like everything happens to you, you start realizing that things happen for you. And the pain of what you've been through really does turn into purpose that not only do you use to heal yourself and use it as rocket fuel for your own life, but also so that you can use it to help somebody else. And we say that a lot on this podcast, is don't deny somebody stepping into their best life and the ripple effect that you can have on them through your story, because you didn't have the courage to own yours. And we do have two choices. And you're a great example of this. You could have stayed and just drowned and suffocated in that relationship because you wanted to people please, because it was easier than the uncomfortableness of leaving. Then when you left, you could have turned around and said, you know, it's all his fault. It's all this. But you said, hey, where do I need to grow at? What red flags did I miss? Why did I stay in it? Yes. There's all these things. And then realizing that no is a complete sentence. It's so wild, because I'm a tough personality. Like I'm pretty direct. I'm willing to give feedback, but I've even found over my own life, I like to make people feel good. So sometimes I'll take away my own internal freedom. I'll put myself into chaos because I'm not willing to say no to somebody else, and just let that be okay. And if they can't respect that boundary, then maybe they're not meant to be in my life. If saying no triggers them, and now they say I've changed, now they say I act like I'm better, now they say this, now they say all these things that people say when you tell them no, maybe they're not really meant to be in your life. But if we're going to not live in a chaotic environment, it starts by working on ourselves. And one of the ways you did that, Janine, and I think this is where I talk about pain to purpose. You wrote a book about it, and the book has helped other people. Talk about, because as a book publishing academy CEO, you know the power of this, but some people are so terrified of what others are going to think they won't ever write that book, even if their heart is like screaming for it. Talk about how that was almost like therapy for you, writing this memoir. And then what has been the reception of putting that out? Because I want people to know if they have the courage, 99% of the time, you're going to find support. And then you're going to have the 1 or 2% of haters that are still out there.
Yeah, so writing this book wasn't really my idea. I actually started off with doing a podcast, and the podcast was very uncomfortable for me. I didn't want to do it at all. And but I did it. I did the podcast. We spoke about narcissistic abuse. And right before it was ready to launch, I told my friend, don't put it out. I don't want to do this. This is too much. And I was crying. And God was like, do it anyways. And that was very clear for me, was do it anyways. And so I started writing, and it was like someone was writing for me. And I literally, I would do 13-hour days writing. The book was done in about 2 weeks. So I don't think that it was me. Like it almost felt like supernatural, and someone was just getting this information out. And every time that I had fear, it was like, do it anyways. So I did it.
And
I was obedient.
And Steph, I know you're going to have a question about this, but I remember when you were writing this, and I remember you and your son, like you hooked up, your fifth wheel or travel trailer to your truck. Boom, y'all going to take a vacation while you're doing it. You ended up stuck in the desert with the trailer. You got a flat tire. So there were so many potential obstacles in the way that could have stopped you from the impact that this book needed to make. And so talk about your mentality and overcoming those, because when we're really stepping into our purpose, we're going to have naysayers. We're going to have bad things, challenging things happen. There's going to be things that we can easily say, no, see, I knew it. I'm not going to do it. I knew that this would be too hard. But when you just push through, the magic that's on the other side and the happiness that's waiting for you really will change your life. So talk about the challenges you had while you were doing that. And then, some of the feedback you've got from people, because I think that that's important too.
Yeah, so sometimes we think, or we have this idea of what it should look like, and then it takes you on a whole different route. But my goal, or what I had planned, was the whole month of June, I was going to go on a RV trip and write the book. And we did. It was me and my mentor. We were gone for about 2 weeks, and every morning I would do an hour of writing. But when I tell you that everything went wrong on that trip, everything went wrong. We really did get stuck in sand. We had to get it pulled out. We had a pickup truck hit our side window. We had to fix that. The heater in the RV broke, like literally everything. And we had to come home. Eventually we had to end the trip. And on the last day, we're on our way home, and I had another moment, another breakdown. I was crying, and I'm like, God, like I really wanted this trip, and I had all this planned. Why is it ending this way? And he was very clear, go home. I have something better for you. And so I came home. I still had the whole month of June off. And I wrote the book, like I said, in 13 days. And then the book came out, hit #1 bestseller. We did a music video. I had a rapper do a song. We directed our first video. Like, it was just crazy. And so many people.
And you were in the video, Mrs. Actress over there, and you crushed it too. It was so good.
I was in the video. We did the Survivors podcast, highlighting survivors of narcissistic abuse. There was just so much good that came from it. And so many people would reach out to me, and they would say, like, you are our voice, because we don't feel strong enough to voice what we're going through. So thank you for being our voice. And that was like, okay, that was it.
I don't know if the listeners have picked up on something I've noticed with Janine is she's always talking about her faith in some way. And I really relate to that, because I'm the same. My faith is very strong. And so I am always kind of gravitated towards people who are too. And I just was curious if you, like, where does your faith come from? Where did that, like, were you raised with that, or is it something that you found later in life on your own?
So I was born and raised Catholic. At the age of 14, I decided I don't believe in this anymore and kind of stopped going to church. I stopped doing anything religious, I guess you can say. At the age of 21, I started going back to a Christian church. But to be honest with you, it didn't really start to hit me until 2015 when I opened up the business. I was living in Miami. And I just had this moment of surrender where I was in a job where I hated it. I hated the job. I hated the company, everything about it. And I was so unhappy. And my son had called me that week, and he was with his dad in Arizona. And he's like, Mom, like, I don't know what you're doing next year, but I'm not going to Arizona. So you got to figure out what you're doing. And with him telling me that, within like 2 days, I put in my 2 weeks notice. I donated all of my clothes, all of my furniture. I packed my car, flew my brother out to help me, and we drove to Arizona. And I came here. Yeah, I came here with only about $500 to my name. Wow. And I had no place to stay. So I was staying on people's couches or hotel rooms. And within 2 months, I was blessed with a new home. I was able to put down on a home, and I closed on my home. And so going through that situation of just surrendering, I have no control over anything. That was the start of my true faith and relationship with God. And I realized that when I don't control it, it comes out way better.
Yeah, for real.
Oh, I love that you said that.
So
Yes.
I've allowed myself to apply that to my life ever since, and even my business. So, and I know a lot of people in business, they hate when I say, oh, I'm an intuitive decision maker, instead of, let me see the numbers. No, I make decisions based off of my intuition, because I know that I'm being led the right way.
Oh man, I love that. I think that's so powerful, because even though you went from Miami to Arizona, it's like the American dream. And I think there's so many people, you talked about it. I was there in corporate America too. Everybody on the pods heard me talk about my breakdown in corporate America. We do things that society tells us that we should do. Society doesn't tell us that we should sell our clothes and sell everything and move across the country with $500. Society doesn't tell you, in my case, that I should leave a job making a few $100,000 a year and start a podcast and become a professional speaker and write a book. Society doesn't say to do any of that, because society says play it safe and live in your quiet misery. And there's way too many people with depression and anxiety and unhealed trauma and triggers where they're reacting day to day, and they're not even living at a fraction of their potential, much less trying to maximize it. Talk about that ability to just truly embrace the fear of the unknown, because you didn't know that you were going to start this. You didn't know you were going to get a house just a short time after that you moved to Arizona. You didn't know any of that stuff. All you knew is that you had a calling to do something different, and then you embraced the fear and you did it anyway. Where did your mind go when you made that decision? So if somebody's listening to this and they're on the precipice of making this decision to do whatever it is that they're going to do, you can leave them with something to say, Janine did it, I'm going for it too.
I think that my son telling me I'm not moving back to Miami next year, you got to figure it out kind of thing, really was the kick in the butt that I needed. Because at the time he was going back and forth between both states, and it was not fair for him. There's something about a mom's love of, like, when you truly put your kids first, that's supersedes anything else. So to me, it was, I just need to make this decision and move for him, and I will figure it out. And I figured it out. So just making that decision allowed me to obviously start my business, get the home, and all the other things, the great things that came from it. But I think it's truly just paying attention in that moment, when the aha moment comes, and then taking action. Because a lot of times we will get signs and we ignore them. Yes. But I saw the sign, like, this is, you have to do something. You can't stay here. Your son doesn't want to be here. Move. And I moved immediately. Like, I mean,
Mm.
and I didn't tell you, I put my 2 weeks notice, but my boss got upset with me and she fired me like 2 days later.
Yeah.
So then it was easy for me. I got my brother out and we just moved that weekend. So sometimes things happen the way they're supposed to. If you just listen, pay attention, and then just do it.
Yeah. And I think don't mistake what Janine's talking about, action for control, because there's a really big difference. Control will suffocate you. It's like putting the blanket over your own head where you can't breathe. That's what control, or trying to control an outcome, especially when most of it is uncontrollable, does. But when you surrender to what you're hearing, to what you're seeing, all these signs and stuff, I already know you're going to talk about signs in a second. When you surrender to that, and then you just take action, the messy action, that's when you start to move things forward, and the picture will become more clear as you continue to take action.
I just wanted to point out again, because we talked about a breakdown, and then you talked about this happening with your son, and those were all what people would consider like bad things happening to you. But I like to call them come to Jesus moments, or your rock bottom, because generally it is something really bad that had to happen to you. Like you said, sometimes like if you don't listen to the signs and then I feel that God brings you to that point for a reason, and it is to get you out of your comfort zone, and it is to make you do something. And so those things happen for a reason, and they're purposeful, and they're actually blessings and gifts, not well, we tend to think of them as a bad thing, and they're not. They're actually usually end up being the best thing to ever happen to you. And that's crazy to say, that it's like, oh, it was painful, or it felt terrible in the moment, but it ended up being the best thing to ever happen to me, because it pushed me into that thing that I didn't want to do. And, Walt and I can totally relate to that. We both have shared our own stories in that realm. Me even doing this podcast is some of that. And I know Janine and I relate to Janine a lot. And I think I've told you before, but maybe not. But at your book launch, I really sat back and listened to you at your book launch. And I knew, Walt had told me that you were kind of more of an introvert, because you had confessed that to him, that, you're kind of, like, this isn't comfortable for me. But I just feel that I have to do it. And I just related to that so much. And then I saw you at the book launch, and I was just like, you would never know. You were up there, and it was just seemed so natural, and it was so beautiful, and it just really inspired me and encouraged me that I can do it, because I'm the same way. I'm an introvert, and I know I have a lot to say and a lot to share, but I always get scared to do it, because the same reasons, of my own self-love, and, feeling like I'm not, no one's going to listen to me, and I'm not good enough, and all those, that stupid little voice that's there, that's, you always got both sides. There's one on each shoulder that's always talking to you. And we tend to listen to the bad one more. And what we don't realize is, if we don't start listening to the other one, we're having other people miss out. Like if Janine didn't have the courage to share her story, I might not have been inspired, and I might not be sitting here today. So, we all have that, if Walt didn't have the courage to share his book, there wouldn't be people out there going back to therapy to heal themselves. So we're all, by not using our gift, we're not allowing other people to use theirs too, because that's kind of what it's all about. It's like a recycling of. So anyway, I wanted to ask you what you would tell the listeners out there that are maybe in the position that you are, where they're kind of like, they have this dream, but they don't know what to do with it, and they don't know where to start, and they're doubting themselves. And it's like you said, you wrote a book at like 9 years old, but you didn't publish it for so many years. Like, what would you tell that person out there that's in your position, and they're like, what do I do with this?
I think
gift.
Two different things that come to mind. We have an obligation, right? Because we could be introverts. I'm a big introvert. I'll be honest, I don't like to be around a lot of people. I tend to stay by myself. I'm that type of person. I love to be home. But we have an obligation in this life to create an impact. Like, it's not a option. I don't even think it's an option. Like, we were called on this earth to do something great, and we have to fulfill our mission. So that is what I lead with. the moments where I kind of just want to stay home and be on TikTok scrolling. It's like, I mean, you need to get up and you need to put in the work, because there are people that are being disserviced by you not doing that thing. So that's number one. Number two for me is something that my biggest fear in life is to be on my deathbed wishing that I would have done X, Y, and Z, that I would have skydived, that I would have written the book, that I would have gone to Dubai and did whatever. You know what I mean? Visited the pyramids of Egypt. And because that is my fear, that is why I choose to do what I do every single day. So my fear pushes me. And a lot of people allow their fear to stagnate them, to keep them hostage. And it's like, I'm so afraid of it being the final moments of my life on that deathbed and being in so much remorse and so much sadness because I didn't go skydive or I didn't go write that book. So that's why I do it.
That's what I'm talking about. No regrets. Let's go. And you're right. Everybody has the choice. You might not think you have the choice, but you have the choice.
You always have a choice.
To get in that right relationship, to go to the pyramids, to start a podcast, to write a book. Like, we all have the choice. Do we have the courage to use it as rocket fuel? Do we allow the fear to paralyze us? Or do we use it to carry us through like Janine has? And so, Janine, I wanted to ask, because we do this on every single episode, you gave some really incredible tips to people listening today. But if you had to pick your top 4 things, your top 4 keys to living an extraordinary life, what would you want people to really know in order for them to maximize their potential like you're trying to maximize yours? What are the 4 keys?
Have faith and belief in yourself. It doesn't matter what religious beliefs you have, but believe in something and something greater than you. That is the number one thing, because without my faith, I wouldn't be where I am today, whether it be in business or in personal life. 2 is focus on your mental health throughout the process, because and I'll speak for myself. There's been situations in my life or just seasons in my life where I wasn't always at the right mental capacity. So it's okay to ask for help, get help if you need it, seek counseling, speak to friends. That helps a lot. I would say also, if you have a dream, like, go out and do it. Because a lot of the times we tend to, like you mentioned earlier, Stephanie, imposter syndrome, or we listen to that negative voice. But where are we what disservice are we doing to the people that need to hear it the most? Had I never pushed forward with the Book Publishing Academy, Walt would have never published his book.
That's right.
We wouldn't be here on this podcast. He would have never walked away from corporate America. And I think about that all the time when I see my authors doing amazing things, of like, it's a ripple effect. So you don't know who you're going to impact by you just taking, believing in yourself and doing something with it. There's 4, right?
Yep.
Love yourself really, truly, wholeheartedly, and never accept anything less than what you deserve. Don't be afraid to ask, because a no is just not right now. It's going to happen.
That's
I'm
right.
a firm believer of that.
Me too. Closed mouths don't get fed. That's what we were talking about, Janine.
I love that, Janine. So much wisdom. And I have to say, I was a big part of like following your program that Walt went through, your Book Publishing Academy. That's how Walt wrote his book. We had a friend that connected Walt to Janine because she had been a friend of Janine's for a long time, and she knew Janine was writing books and that she had this Book Publishing Academy. She met Walt, and Walt talked about wanting to write a book, and so she connected the 2 of them, and it just took off from there. And so we followed Janine's Book Publishing Academy, and I even went through and read or listened to all your modules in the program, and I was just like blown away, like, wow, the work and effort that she put into making this, her blood, sweat, and tears that must have went into getting this all together. she was really providing great value for your money. I mean, really, truly. It was just great advice. And I know that it's not easy to find a lot of that information because we had tried to do some of it and
Right.
it's not easy. And so she just streamlined the whole process from, you know, and I just love this because you're the example of someone taking, like, you had to go through that and it was difficult in your process, and you realized, like, this could be made streamlined. This could be made better. I can make this easier for people, and turned it into something amazing that is helping other authors get their story out there. So, I mean, what a beautiful thing. I mean, and like you said, if you hadn't recognized that gift in yourself and believe in yourself to do it, you know, who knows? Like you said, Walt probably wouldn't have wrote his book. I mean, because I had been telling him for several years to write the book, and we just didn't know how to go about it. And you just really made that easy. And so we're just super grateful to Janine. We'll always be grateful to Janine for that.
Thank you.
So I want to touch on this because I want to stay here just for a second because I think this is important. So when Janine and I met, it took, gosh, I don't know, Janine, what, 10 months to a year before I did the Book Publishing Academy?
Mm-hmm.
And about a year, right? We met, we had a conversation. Corporate America was bananas. You guys know my story. I just didn't have the time. More importantly, I just didn't prioritize what I really needed to do. And when I left corporate America, now mind you, I just left all this money on the table in corporate
Here
America.
comes the come to Jesus moment.
You know, I had my breakdown.
To do it.
You and I talked not too long after that, Janine. And my buddy and Stephanie, again, it's God, the signs, God talking to us. He told Stephanie, Walt's never going to write the book and really go all in on what he's meant to do if he doesn't leave corporate America. And Stephanie's like, I know. And then bam, nervous breakdown, right? And then we had a conversation after that. And I was really left with a choice.
And I felt like God was telling me this was the moment. This was it. This was the time. You needed to go for it.
Well, and I was left with a choice. Okay, just left all this income on the table. Do I turn around and invest into myself through Janine's program in order to have the impact long-term that I want to have? And in the coaching industry and people selling programs and courses, I've seen a lot of BS out there. And I will tell our audience, you guys already know, 12 episodes in, we're not bringing cupcakes on here. We're not bringing people who don't live congruent and authentic to what they do. We're not bringing people on here to talk about how they can help you if they haven't lived the journey themselves, if they aren't living the journey right now. And so your Book Publishing Academy, I wouldn't have done it without that. I wouldn't have done it. And I wouldn't have known an editor, and I wouldn't have known, magical artists, and I wouldn't have known this whole journey. And then we wouldn't have created the friendship that we created. And so I just think it's such a blessing. And those of you guys out there that know you have a story, like you feel it, man, you're like, damn, I know I got to get this story out there. I don't know how. I was right where Walt's at. I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. You need to join the Book Publishing Academy because, Janine, correct me if I'm wrong. I think you beefed it up recently. There was like 80 modules last time. How many?
75, 80 modules, yeah.
Yeah, 75, 80 modules, bite-sized
videos.
And she has it all in worksheets also.
Bite-sized chunks with worksheets. The whole program's laid out. You just got to execute on it. But nobody can do the work for you. Nobody can make the decision for you. Nobody can make you embrace the fear and take the steps. Only the belief that you garner from Janine sharing her story today, from us sharing ours, can propel you forward. Now we're giving you the tool you need once you've gotten the belief to go to the next level. So Janine, talk a little bit. If I missed anything about the BPA, talk about that. But I want people to really know where to find you. And so talk to them about that for a second.
So a little more on the BPA. Yes, it's a total of 9 modules with over 75 different videos. It comes with a follow-along workbook, all the contracts and templates that you'll need for your book business. Not only do we teach you how to publish the book, we also teach you how to start the author business. We teach you marketing and sales and like literally everything.
That's a big piece.
Bi-weekly meetings where people who know this, it's their jam. They come in and teach everything.
We do bi-weekly meetings, and once a month we bring on guest speakers that are experts in the industry to teach you new things. We do an annual summit, a virtual summit. And then we do little cool things. Walt was a guest model in one of our photo shoots.
You got a doll as a model. It's like Beauty and the Beast right there. Like, look.
We do an author appreciation dinner. It's just honestly the best part of it is the community. We have a great author family. They're just awesome. But where you can reach me, the best way is Instagram. I'm on there all the time. So the name is Book Publishing Academy on Instagram. Or you can email me info@JanineHernandez.com. Those are the two best ways.
Yeah, and I gotta say, really, I highly recommend Janine. She is the real deal, genuine, authentic. You get what you pay for with her and more. I mean, really, she goes above and beyond like I've never seen. And I truly mean that. And I don't say that about very many people. So honestly,
we're not going to sacrifice our integrity if it ain't true. I promise you that. And this is not a paid advertisement either. This is just because we love Janine.
Yes, really do. And like I said, we will always be indebted to her because truly she is what got us off the ground with this whole, just the start of him writing the book. And even that has spurred us into like entrepreneurship. So, I mean, we love you, Janine, and we're so thankful to you.
Thank you guys. I appreciate you. Really do.
Janine, thank you so much for joining us today. I was really excited to get you out here. And, we've been running and gunning because we're both executors. So we've been taking a lot of action. And I love that we got an opportunity to just sit down today and just share and for you to give your wisdom to the listeners.
Thank you so much for having me. Truly appreciate it. And I love everything that you guys are doing and just keep pushing forward. Can't wait for Stephanie's book.
Amen, my friend. So look, guys, you know where to find Janine. Look up Book Publishing Academy. Find it, join it today. Get your story out there because somebody's waiting for you to share your story. And so for next week, look, we're about to deep dive off the end, head first off the 20-foot diving board to talk about comparison and how comparison can either steal your joy or become a superpower and the ultimate motivator. It's all about how you think about it. We're going to talk about opportunities in our life where it's done both. So look, if this episode resonated with you, share it out to somebody, shoot them a text, tell them to listen, tell them they got to go to a certain part of it that will touch them and allow them to step into their power. Don't forget to subscribe to the Legacy Warrior podcast on all the preferred podcast platforms, or join us on YouTube or Instagram at legacywarrior.com. And look, y'all, next week's episode is literally came from a listener who asked us to talk about comparison being the thief of joy when they listen to our expectation episode. We can't help you maximize your potential if we don't know what you want to hear. So we love it. Tell us what you think. Tell us what you want to hear. And for now,
those questions.
Man, let's go. So until the next time, stay in the arena of life, keep fighting, keep taking steps forward, and
leave this world a little bit better than you found it.
Boom. See you guys next Tuesday.